I identify as transgender, and I identify as queer. I have a husband, I'm married, and I also identify as gender, which this is the first time I realized I'm talking about publicly.
Particularly concerned as we move into the school year with more in-person learning happening, that we just don't want to see any additional outbreaks of any other diseases.
When I realized I can do it, I said anybody can do this. Like, anyone has the ability to shift the mindset and do anything that they want to do on this earth.
Thanks so much for joining us. You're watching LGBT, Healthcare and Me, a presentation sponsored by Minnesota Department of Health. I'm Todd Michael Barnes. Our topic this episode, faith, religion, and spirituality in LGBTQ communities. Where are we today? We begin a series of episodes where we look at how faith, religion, and spirituality are observed and practiced by members of LGBTQ communities. In our series, we'll explore the many different messages LGBTQ persons hear while growing up, and we'll delve into how faith, religion, and spirituality are impacting us during COVID-19. Plus, in just a few moments, we meet Enzi Tanner, a former member of Exodus International, the ex-gay reparative program. Tanner, who began her journey as an African-American born-again Christian female, now identifies as an African-American Jewish male. We'll meet Enzi Tanner in just a few moments. And coming up, our Pink Power panel joins us to share experiences about what it was like growing up LGBTQ inside and outside the church, the temple, or the mosque. But first, LGBTQ health-related headlines begin right now. LGBTQ persons in the United States and around the world are still experiencing the deadliest public health crisis in 100 years. This is an emergency. This is not a test. The total number of COVID-19 cases Minnesota has experienced since the beginning of the pandemic is 644,190. 34,949 COVID-19 cases in Minnesota have required hospitalization. With 7,799 of our fellow Minnesotans, they're no longer with us. They're dead. This is an emergency. This is not a test. To put these numbers in perspective, the number of Minnesotans who have died so far from COVID-19 would fill up 1/4 of Target Field Baseball Stadium, or you'd have to fill up the State Theater downtown Minneapolis 3.5 times to get the same number of persons in Minnesota who have died from COVID-19. A University of Washington model suggests that 100,000 more Americans could die by December from COVID-19. Now, Dr. Anthony Fauci in response says, what's going on now is entirely predictable and entirely preventable. We know we have the wherewithal with vaccines to turn this around. More than 195 million Americans have already received COVID-19 vaccines. Unlike many other parts of the world, there's a large supply of COVID vaccines here in the United States. Anyone 12 and older can get the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, LGBTQ persons and our loved ones, this is an emergency. This is not a test. To find the site closest to you, visit the Vaccine Connector at the website listed below. Now, later in our Healthy Rainbow Families segment, a special guest from the Minnesota Department of Health will share vital information about how many different vaccines, not just the COVID-19 vaccine, but share different information about the many vaccines that children will need as they return back to school. The Delta variant is more contagious, but vaccines prevent almost all cases of severe illness, hospitalization, and death from COVID-19. But now, the Jerusalem Post is reporting there's a new COVID variant detected that's been found in South Africa, the most mutated variant so far, called the C.1.2 variant. Now, there's concerns that this variant could be more infectious and evade current vaccines, according to South Africa's National Institute for communicable diseases. But here closer to home, the FDA has approved the first COVID-19 vaccine, and it will now be marketed as Comirnaty for the prevention of COVID-19, or mixing the words community with the original name of the vaccine. According to several sources, Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves says people in Mississippi are less scared of COVID-19 because they believe in eternal life. Insider Magazine and others report the governor said at a Republican fundraiser, "I'm often asked by some of my friends on the other side of the aisle about COVID. And why does it seem like folks in Mississippi, and maybe in the Mid-South, are a little less scared, shall we say? Well, when you believe in eternal life," says the governor, "when you believe that living on this earth is but a blip on the screen, then you don't have to be so scared of things." Now, these are from the chief executive of Mississippi, which according to the New York Times has recorded newer COVID-19 cases per capita, more than any other state. NBC News reports LGBTQ Afghans and their advocates fear the return of Taliban rule. They fear that rule will mean severe penalties for homosexuality. Now, a 20-year-old Afghan female told NBC, "They will kill us without sympathy." And Faraz, a 25-year-old gay man, told NBC he fears that his family will be kidnapped or killed if they remain in Afghanistan, saying the Taliban is in search of gay people. They're going from street to street. GLAAD recently reported a new study found that less than half of American adults feel knowledgeable about HIV. In its second annual State of HIV Stigma study, GLAAD reported 48% of adults feeling knowledgeable about HIV, noting the number is 3 points lower than last year. GLAAD officials are saying that the stories and voices of people living with HIV are often not prioritized enough to decrease the stigma around the HIV epidemic. Fox News reports an Illinois mother says a Cook County judge stripped her parental rights over her refusal to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Rebecca Fearlet told Fox 32 Chicago that Cook County Judge James Shapiro revoked all of her parenting time with her son until she gets vaccinated. Fearlet said, "I miss my son more than anything. It's been very difficult. I haven't seen him since August 10th. The Associated Press is reporting school board members from across the country are stepping down and resigning from school boards due to hostile school board meetings about mask wearing. A Nevada school board member said she had thoughts of suicide before stepping down. And in Virginia, a board member resigned over politics driving decisions on masks. And in Wisconsin, school board member Rick Rothaus said, "The work's become toxic and impossible to do. When I got in, I knew it would be difficult, but I wasn't prepared for the vitriolic response that would occur, especially now that the pandemic seemed to just bring everything out in a very, very harsh way." CVS, according to the Wall Street Journal, now wants to be your therapist. CVS, along with Walmart and Walgreens, have now begun to offer mental health therapists at several of their stores across the U.S. After initial visits, there were so many CVS customers who came back for repeat visits to mental health professionals. CVS has decided to expand the mental health therapy offerings to even more stores. 7-time Emmy winner Ed Asner is dead. Asner played the venerable Lou Grant for years on both the Mary Tyler Moore Show and his own namesake show, Lou Grant. Asner, the former 2-time president of the Screen Actors Guild, was 91. Now, later, Pink Power panelist Trishan Smythe helps us introduce a new segment in today's show, LGBTQ Success Stories, where we celebrate LGBTQ stories of triumph and our LGBTQ entrepreneurial, educational, and professional dreams. In just a moment, we'll hear from a person who was told they could pray their gay away. But first, some faith, religion, and spirituality news. The top U.S. Catholic leader who tried to deny President Biden communion steps down because of his own Grindr scandal. In July, Monsignor Jeffrey Burrill resigned as the General Secretary of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops after media reports broke regarding the Catholic priest's propensity to visit Grindr, the gay hookup app, where reports also alleged improper behavior that would contradict Burrill's publicly proclaimed vow of celibacy as a priest and as a top leader in the U.S. Catholic Church. Now, Burrell's private phone data was hacked, and his most personal information was then released to the public. Monsignor Burrill wasn't just any Catholic priest or top leader in the Catholic Church. Monsignor Burrill was responsible for the vote taken by the U.S. Conference of Bishops in June of 2021 to attempt to deny the Eucharist or communion to President Biden and other Catholic politicos who support legal abortion. Now, CNN reports 4 men, including a Hindu priest, have been charged with rape and murder of a 9-year-old Delhi, India girl. The crime is part of a wider spread sexual violence problem inbred within India's caste system. The crematorium, which had the daughter's body, showed the mother the body of her daughter and informed her her daughter had also been electrocuted. Gospel singer Donnie Mcclurkin recently said he'll probably be alone for the rest of his life because of his struggle over his sexuality. In April, Yahoo News reported gospel singer Donnie Mcclurkin opened up yet again about his sexuality, saying, "I've messed up more than I've had good. My past relationships were a sprinkling of everything, men and women." Now, Mcclurkin, 61, is well known for his views that homosexuality is a perversion. He cites homosexuality as a sin. Mcclurkin told Yahoo he still had urges to be with men, but chose not to, comparing homosexuality to diabetes. Mcclurkin said, "I don't eat sugar, but that doesn't mean I don't want sugar." Now the gospel singer says he believes his struggle with his sexuality will leave him without the one thing in which he has dreamed, a family. Mcclurkin said, "When things get rough, I go back into my safe space, my music and my ministry." He added, "Never having a long-term relationship in my life and never being married, I chalk that up. I'll probably be alone for the rest of my life as far as a mate is concerned." Now, Mcclurkin claims he has gay tendencies that stem from being sexually abused by male relatives beginning at age 8. He said these tendencies surfaced because a broken man thrust an 8-year-old boy into his whirlwind. Thus, my first sexual relationship was with a man before I could ever know the purpose or pleasure of a woman, have my first date, or even my first kiss. The wound was inflicted. The seed was planted. Mcclurkin is well known for spreading the message, you can pray the gay away. He says some have no desire to change this lifestyle, but there are countless numbers of people who are not happy in this lifestyle and want to be freed from it. Today, we meet Enzi Tanner, a person who's worked in the faith community in the Twin Cities for the past 15 years. Enzi Tanner insists he isn't a unicorn or a rarity, but rather a black, Jewish, autistic, transgender male. 37-year-old Tanner is also a licensed social worker, life coach, podcast originator, public safety trainer, and happily married to his husband.
I tend to, I tend to take the perspective that I'm not that special, in a sense that we're all special or unique. And I struggle with this piece of being seen. I want to name that for me, most of my adult life has been in predominantly areas where I am very much seen as the other. I'm Jewish, and I'm very much involved in Jewish community and particularly with other Black Jewish organizers. I do identify as a trans male. I'm not sure if that's the proper term anymore because I think that's not, but I identify as transgender, and I identify as queer. I have a husband, I'm married, and I also identify as gender, which this is the first time I realized I'm talking about publicly, but at the age of 37, I was diagnosed as autistic, and that was a new thing for me this year. And one of the terms that I learned about is gender, which means that our gender and our understanding of our gender is directly impacted by our experience of being autistic. And I've been doing faith work in the Twin Cities for about 15 years. Because I've been here for about 15 years. So about 15 years, and I have been on many different paths and journeys.
Tanner is also a former lesbian and member of Exodus International, the ex-gay reparative therapy organization, which was disbanded in 2013.
I think I mentioned before, but my background from a long time ago is I was involved in Exodus International and ex-gay programming with the Christian church.
Tanner, who's been doing faith work in the Twin Cities for the past 15 years, began his faith journey 25 years ago at age 12 upon hearing renowned gospel star Donnie Mcclurkin at a youth convention declare, "You don't have to suffer like this anymore." Or as interpreted by Tanner and others, "You can pray the gay away." And so that's exactly what Tanner did in his teen years and into adulthood. He tried to pray the gay away.
Growing up, I didn't know any black trans men at all. I didn't know any trans people, period. I've heard about drag queens, and that was it. One of my earliest memories of giving any messages was when I was at a youth convention. And Donnie Mcclurkin, I don't know if you, or if folks are aware who Donnie Mcclurkin is. He is a gospel singer who, part of his story is that he struggled with homosexuality. And so at the age of 12, so this was 95, 96, at the age of 12, he talked about, you don't have to suffer with this. You could pray it away and because this is bad. And that was the first time I received that message. And I really was like, oh, then I need to change. And I tried. And fast forward, this was in the black church. And so I want to name that because oftentimes when we talk about issues, sometimes we really focus on the black community when it comes to LGBTQ issues. And I want to name that my experience in the church was way worse when I was in a predominantly white church. And so with that piece, I found myself just trying to change, like thinking that I could change, but I didn't actually tell anyone anything at the time. I just was going to the altar, praying. But fast forward, after 9/11, I became a born-again Christian. And at that time, I knew for sure that I was a lesbian and struggling with those things. So I told my pastor.
At first, Tanner attempted to pray the gay away as a lesbian, attending gay deprogramming sessions in the basement of a church. The messages she received from the church and the pastor weren't pretty.
So I told my pastor, who immediately sent me to, gave me some books to read and sent me to a program that was very much like, I would imagine very much like AA meetings, where we would go in the back of a building of a church, go all the way down in the basement and confess our struggles and the same-sex attractions we had.
However, no matter how hard Tanner tried, she simply couldn't pray the gay away.
As the church was constantly saying, you're damaged, you're broken, this is what's wrong with you, this is what's happened. And for me, I couldn't change. I kept trying, and it wasn't happening. And I realized for me at that time that if I was going to live and survive, I had to leave the ex-gay programming.
Tanner then went on to attend a Bible-based college, a Southern Christian Baptist school, where she received even more mixed messages.
I was lucky. I went to a Christian Southern Baptist school. That's not the lucky part. But I had people at the school who was very just amazing and really supportive. And so while I was doing the Exodus International ex-gay stuff, I had two groups of people. One group of people who was trying to push me in and stay into Exodus International. At that point, I was going to be a missionary. And so it was also folks who I was doing mission work with. And then on the other hand were friends who were like, you are perfectly fine as who you are. Trying to, taking me out to clubs, and we would go hours away to the gay club because our campus, like my campus, we would have gotten kicked off if we were discovered as queer. And so for me, I would name that I had these dual messages happening at the same time. It's interesting. One of my friends who, just a great friend of mine, I remember the conference I went to for Exodus International in St. Louis, and I stayed with a friend. He had no clue why I was at that conference. And so at that point, everyone just assumed I was a good little Christian girl. And in fact, when I eventually came out at school, I remember when I left Exodus, I went to the last meeting and I stood up and I said, we talk so much about life and about choosing life, and I have to leave this because if I stay in this ministry, I'm going to die, and it will kill me. and I'm mindful that I have, just like many other people, I've had a life of suicide ideations, and even thinking through realization that, oh, Donnie Mcclurkin was when I was 12 years old. And that's when I first started to realize, or I started to think, that I was so damaged that it didn't make sense to try to keep doing whatever I was trying to do.
Around this time, Tanner was also given the boot from the basement of the church.
I just couldn't keep up. Like I couldn't keep up the charade. And right, it's college campus. And so I said I had these two different dual things happening at the same time. Multiple things happened also. Someone found out that I was going to the clubs, told my pastor. My pastor was like, you need to get your stuff together. Shortly after, like 2 months is when I got kicked out, because a month later, I was like, I can't do this anymore. This isn't working. And so when I left it, actually, is when I got kicked out of the church at the same time. When I left the program, the pastor said, I love you. I just wish that you loved yourself.
Tanner still feels bad about participating in a program that hurt other people.
I want to name that sometimes we do things, not taking up for him. I know that I'm speaking for myself, that I caused a ton of harm to people in the church, as well as encourage other folks at that time period, because I thought I was doing what was right, to do the same thing that I was doing.
Finally, Tanner decided to make his escape, an escape from debasing church basement programming and a discharge from denying who and what he really is. Well, turns out Tanner was more than who he thought he was. Turns out, deep down inside, Tanner is a Jew. Now, during our next episode, we learn how Enzi transitioned, how he transitioned from a born-again Christian to a Jew. Faith, religion, and spirituality are observed and practiced in so many ways in LGBTQ communities. It impacts how we care for each other, as well as how we deal with our greatest sufferings and our deepest joys. We're a rainbow of denominations and an array of non-denominations, as well as other personal, religious, and spiritual belief systems. Recently, 2 of our Pink Power panel members had a faith ceremony of their own, a wedding. Congratulations to Pink Power panelist Montse Franco, and now instead of Joe Stansberry, Joe Franco. Congratulations, Montse and Joe. My first question before diving in would be, what was your experience with faith, religion, and spirituality while you were growing up? And how has that impacted your life today?
I was brought up in the church, first off. Very religious family upbringing. We identified more so with Christianity. And as I grew and got older and realized more and became into myself for who I am as a lesbian woman, that kind of changed. That looked a little differently with the church. So with that experience, it pulled me away. It separated me. It shook my faith a little bit because the church wasn't as welcoming. They say come as you are, but you better come a different type of way. Only if, right? You're okay to be drinking, smoking, doing all these things, but you cannot come gay, right? So that was a problem for me, and it separated me from the church. But as I continued my relationship with God, on my own, away from the church, he told me to come back. And that's what I did. Regardless to what they were thinking or what they were talking about or how they viewed me as a person, individual, my only concern is between my relationship between me and God, right? So with that experience, I am back into the church now. I mean, you can have church anywhere. Church can be at your house. Church can be wherever. But I'm talking about the building as going inside into a church home. That was tough.
How about you, Joe? What was your experience like growing up? Faith, religion, or spirituality?
So I also grew up in the church in a Lutheran denomination. Our congregation was very small, but I went to church every Sunday. I went to Sunday school every Sunday. And my mom was actually a Sunday school teacher. So I always had perfect attendance going to Sunday school. I had a little pin And each year, another little pin was notched under it. We had one big pin, and then there were little ones for each year of perfect attendance going to Sunday school. So for me, I don't remember any of those messages where so-and-so isn't good, or it was all about how Jesus loved you. And I remember the music. And then I remember seeing my friends or my cousins at church. And so growing up, I didn't really get those messages that that I wasn't okay from the church. It wasn't until I got out of confirmation that I really was turned off by going to church and religion. I would say now, when I do go to church, I go for the community of people that also go to church. I think I'm more spiritual than religious. I think religion has left a really bad taste in my mouth, the way religion is used against the LGBT community. So I choose to take what I get or what works for me from church, and that is getting with people who are moving in a forward direction or in a loving direction with one another. So I don't agree with religion. I don't consider myself to be a religious person. I believe in a higher power, spirituality, and that's where I'm at.
How about you, Monses? What was it like for you growing up with faith or religion or spirituality?
For me, growing up, I was raised by sinners. My parents weren't in the church. They didn't raise me in the church. My experience with church began in the mid-'80s. I'm from the west side of St. Paul, Minnesota. There was a red bus that used to come in from the suburbs and pick up inner city kids. And the attraction was that they would give you a toy if you get on this bus. I didn't know why we were getting on the bus. We just knew we were going to get a toy. When we got on the bus, the people were jovial and friendly. There was a bunch of kids together. So there was that atmosphere of like a playground. When we got into the church, I never really took away any education on what faith was or religion. The message I took away was kind of like a scare tactic. The moment that sticks with me the most is every time at the church part of us getting together in the pews and in the rows, there would be somebody up front on a microphone talking about you need to get saved. If you don't get saved, then you're going to go to hell. You don't want to go to hell. So it was a scare tactic, right? Who wants to get saved? We need to see your hands in the air. And when your hands are in the air, they come and grab you to the front, and then they say a prayer over you. And I don't think I ever went. For me, I didn't understand it. But, as I grow and as I morph as a person, I can see that in my life, I was constantly in prayer. And for me to be in prayer is just like, it sets a number of things. One of them is, to be thankful. The other one, sometimes it's for safety over me or protection of others. And also at moments it's been to seek guidance, so this constant thing that I was always doing was, you can call it meditation, you can call it putting time, energy, and effort into one thing. I'll just sum it up as the word prayer. And so over time, I learned that my relationship with spirituality was in existence before I knew how to put a name to it. And so growing up, there were so many messages just about not being gay that I didn't ever think that was in my future. And then so coming into my own sexuality, being a gay male later on in life, I took away these messages from previous years that it was not okay to say you were a person of God or of religion or of spirituality if you were gay, because those are the messages that I was raised under, ideal to male-female relationships. So that's all that I knew at that time. as now life changes. The way that I think at 10 isn't the same at 20. It's not the same as 30. And this Saturday, I'll be celebrating my 40th birthday. So fast forwarding you into my life today, I understand my spirituality as a personal relationship. And it is not to be shrunk down to fit another person's version. It's not meant to be dimmed to fit the lighting in the room.
Growing up, I've been a part of like several different religions. It's been about 5. And right now, I'm leaning more towards just my spirituality. I've kind of not really delved back into any of them. In the beginning, I started out as a Jehovah's Witness with my mother. My grandmother is a leader and is one of the elders of the Jehovah's Witness organization with the Watchtower in New York and all that. And my other grandfather on my father's side, he was a Mason. So he, this is how I learned all these hand gestures and how to protect myself within certain things, learning from him growing up. My grandmother, his wife, was Nazareth. And so we went to church on Saturdays. We didn't go to church on Sundays. So women were allowed to not preach at the church, but she was the founder of the church. So the church belongs to my family. My uncle is the pastor of the church right now to this day. So for me, growing up around so many different people that had these ideals of the scripture, of one that they wanted to follow at the time, or it felt like a lot of it, when they went to these Bible scholaring classes, I call them diploma mills for Bible teaching to teach people to become pastors. And a lot of times they'll go to these specific scriptures to just angle towards this one thing to make it look like it's just about that one thing. And it's not. It's more to it. It's the languages are different. The languages have been changed over the years to represent English language for us to understand what we're reading. But there's different meanings behind each one of these words. Even in, I'm not sure if it's Matthew 12:19, when it talks about eunuchs. You could think about eunuchs, Queen Esther, only eunuchs could dress her. That'd be like Beyonce and her little crew getting her dress. It's like it's a different way of looking at it. It's a different way kind of looking at things. Kind of like how Kanye was thinking in a sense of right now we're living in the times right now of what these people would have been looked at as then, And so right now we have different prophets. We have different type of people that are putting out these different messages. Growing up, for me, it was tough because each religion was against my lifestyle. So for me, I had to, toe the line. If I wanted my uncle to pay for this, my dad to do this, I come from a very wealthy family. So for me, I could not have these things unless I was doing these things. This is why I've created my own life and start doing stuff for myself, because I'm like, they're not going to hand me anything. I'm going to have to do stuff for myself. And that comes from a background of being a PK, a preacher's kid, So, from on my experience, I've lost a lot because my family is deeply, heavily into religion on both sides of my family. I am the black sheep of my family. They watch me like, I can't believe he's doing this. How is he doing this? And they don't understand it. It's because of the Creator. I'm still going to be blessed regardless of whatever your religion says. And the thing is, religion isn't exactly not what Jesus of the Bible, if you read it, was ever preaching about. He told you to stay away from that and seek the Father. So it's like, why are everybody focusing on these buildings? You hear what I'm saying? So for me, my experience has been there's more truth out there than what we know.
Today in our Healthy Rainbow Families segment, a guest from the Minnesota Department of Health shares vital information about the different vaccines that our children need as they return to school.
During the COVID-19 pandemic that we've been going through, we know a lot of families haven't been able to get their preteens and teens, their adolescents in for primary care visits. And an important thing that happens at these primary care visits is preventative services like vaccines. So it doesn't come as a surprise to us, but we are worried because we're seeing a large gap in our adolescent vaccination rates in the state. So in terms of what young people are recommended to get, They are recommended to get 3 vaccines at 11 and 12 years old. And those vaccines are Tdap, and that's for the prevention of pertussis, also known as whooping cough. They also are recommended to receive HPV vaccine, and that is for the prevention of 6 different types of cancers. And then also recommended to receive a vaccine called meningococcal vaccine, and that prevents certain types of meningitis. So all 3 really important vaccines for a young person to have. And we're particularly concerned as we move into the school year and seeing such a drop in these vaccination rates. We are obviously concerned about the increase of COVID-19 and what's going on with the Delta variant. And so stressing the importance for all young people 12 and up to make sure they get their COVID-19 vaccine, but also they need to make sure that they get vaccines that may have been missed during the pandemic. We actually have a program. It's a federally run program, but our state runs it, called Vaccines for Children. And this is a program that ensures children who are Medicaid eligible. So this is children all through the age of 18 who are on Medicaid or who don't have insurance, or who identify as Alaskan Native or American Indian, that they can receive vaccines at no to low cost. And many clinics throughout the state are a part of this program and would be able to offer vaccine to families. So on the health department's webpage, you can actually go to our clinic finder and type in your zip code of where you live, and a bunch of clinics will pop up in your area that are a part of this program. And you can go ahead and just give the clinic a call, explain your situation. Maybe you don't have insurance, or you just have newer Medicaid insurance or newer insurance, and you haven't really figured out a healthcare provider for your child. They should be able to help you figure out where you can go and get you an appointment scheduled to get your child the vaccines they need.
In our next episode, we will learn about the entrepreneurial endeavors of our Pink Power panel member, Wow. But first, today, Trishan Smythe helps us introduce a new segment, LGBTQ Success Stories, where we celebrate LGBTQ stories of triumph and our LGBTQ entrepreneurial, educational, and professional dreams. Now, in our next episode, we'll hear from Wow, and then going forward, we'll always let you know how you can patronize the business of Wow, Trishan, and businesses of color and LGBTQ businesses everywhere. Another part of celebrating the hopes and the dreams of our family right here is to lift up the different businesses that we have in our family and community, and to celebrate the spirit of entrepreneurship. And so tonight we're going to do just that. And so Trishan has a business, and we have asked Trishan to please introduce us to this wonderful business. Tell us how we can get involved and engaged and what we can do to support you.
Yes, so the name of my business is Evolve Thinking LLC. You can find me at evolvethinking.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Evolve Thinking or Facebook. So what I am a life coach and a motivational speaker, and I specialize in personal development and empowerment. Our main focus and goal is to meet people where they are and help them get to where they're going. I have three different categories that you can fall into when you go to the website, which is getting started, on the road, and all in. So feel free to go to the website and check that out. Again, that website is www.evolvethinking.com. And I'm always open to people that are willing to volunteer their time for coaching or mentorship, because there is a spinoff we're doing called Evolve 2.0, which is allowing to send 10 people on scholarships to college, but with some financial literacy and mentorship along the way to get them started.
Getting started on the road and all in. What got you started? What got you on the road? And what's kept you all in? And congratulations. It sounds like an amazing business.
Well, what initially got me started was my family, to be honest. They were the driving force of this whole thing. But once I got started with this business and, I enjoy helping people and watching people grow and helping them get to where they're going to. That was me being on the road to success. And then just even for myself personally, personal trials and tribulations that I've endured and conquered over the years, like smoking and drinking and climbing myself out of debt, just an array of things. When I realized I can do it, I said, anybody can do this. Like anyone has the ability to shift the mindset and do anything that they want to do on this earth. No, it's going to be hard work. It's going to take a lot of self-discipline, but it can be done. And like my sense said, you have to believe in yourself. So we have 5 tools that we used called BEAST Mindset, which is an acronym. And that stands for believe, which is a huge, because you can't do anything without believing in yourself first. Endure, adapt. You have to be open to adapting to change, to different surroundings, different environments. Self-discipline and tenacity. You have to be tenacious. You have to be persistent. You have to be determined in those things that you're trying to accomplish in your life. And that's what we use with our clients. We help them tap into those belief systems.
That concludes this episode of LGBT, Healthcare and Me. Thank you to the Minnesota Department of Health. Remember, LGBTQIA persons and our allies, you are not alone. You can find us 24/7 at www.toddbarnesreporting.com. Now in St. Paul, you can dial us up on channels 14, 15, 16, and 19 on Comcast, and find us on YouTube, Todd Barnes Reporting. And when you're there, don't forget to smash that like button. And remember to hit subscribe. Until our next episode, and until we meet again, it's my hope we dish up some respect and lean in toward love for all of us at ENA. Todd Barnes reporting.